Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, both now and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen. Christ is in our midst. Today, brothers and sisters, is the fourth Sunday of Great Lent. And the Holy Fathers of the Holy Orthodox Church has said for us that this day we should commemorate our Father in the Holy Fathers, St. John the Ladder, St. John Climacus, who's, by the way, he has two feasts. One of them is March 30th. So today actually is not only his Sunday, it is also his commemoration day. So it's actually a coincidence that these 2 days are coincided today in this Sunday. It's divine providence, actually. But the reason that the Holy Fathers have put him for us, because he wrote this book, The Ladder to God. The Ladder to God. And he wrote this book in the 5th century, in the 6th century, and he died in 606 early in the 7th century, at the dawn of the 7th century. And we have his icon right here in our Holy Church. And we also have his icon over there at the end of the icons, also in our Holy Church. He's a very, very blessed saint. And as soon as you open this book, it will tell you this book is not for casual reading. And the reason for that is because none of us, no regular human, is able to see a jar of honey and eat it all at once. He needs just a little spoon and needs to taste it and let it soak into his body, because you cannot take more than 1 or 2 spoons. It's impossible. Or a big jar of fat. This book, brothers and sisters, is filled, is rich, is dense with spiritual experience. So that's why even though there are so many fathers in the church that they will recommend that the children are the faithful of the church will read this book during Great and Holy Lent, I would respectfully disagree with them, because that's simply impossible. And what my humble recommendation would be is that this book is comprised of 30 steps, because it's the ladder to God, and the ladder is 30 steps or 33 steps, because the life of Christ was 33 years. I would recommend that every year in Great and Holy Lent, we would read one step. One step for 30 years. This is how, and we try to apply that step with the guide of our spiritual father throughout those years. And if we were to achieve anything, it is a grace from God. That's for us in the world. For the monks, it's a different story. This recommendation is for us, the faithful who live in the world, and we have our jobs and businesses and all of that. Now, before we get to the gospel, I would like to tell you, brothers and sisters, because the gospel talks about exorcising demons, basically the power over demons, the power of Christ over demons, and it also talks about why the disciples were not able to cast out the demon. And Christ answered them with fasting and prayer. So the church put for us also that fasting and prayer are very important. And not just this Sunday, but also the second Sunday of Great Lent was of St. Gregory Palamas, who was a strong ascetic. The fourth Sunday is St. John Climacus, a very, very strong ascetic. He lived in Sinai, in the desert of Sinai, from age 16 till after 80th. Next Sunday is the Sunday of St. Mary of Egypt, one of the greatest ascetics of all time in the history of all the church. 47 years in the wilderness on her own. So asceticism, prayer, fastings are important, brothers and sisters. That's the message of the church. And to see how important is it, I try to, by the way, to find it in the English book, in the English translation of the book, but the English translation doesn't have the preface. It doesn't, like this book in Arabic, it has the preface by the translator. It's because it's translated from Greek, of course, from ancient Greek, and it has a little bit about the life of St. John, and it also has the letter, because the letter from St. John of Erythio, who asked St. John Climacus to write this book, because St. John Climacus didn't say to himself, okay, I have so much wisdom now, let me translate it to the world, let me give it to the world, I will save the world. That's not how it was. It was actually a request by another abbot. He was an abbot of a monastery, St. John, monastery of St. Catherine in Sinai. And another St. John, also another ascetic, asked this John Climacus to write this book. And St. John Climacus, in obedience, wrote it. So for today, let's see that how the life, a long life of asceticism and prayer and fasting, even though will change us, even though fasting is not about the food, it's what the food reveals. It's not about it. It's not that God hates food, but it reveals our passions. It's what's beyond the food. So fasting is important, not because of the food, because of what it shows and what it empowers. So let me read to you my own humble translation, the Father Athanasius translation, because it's in Arabic. So I'm reading it in Arabic and translating it. So basically it says, the letter of John, the abbot of the monastery of Raithu, to John the Venerable, the abbot of the monastery of Mount Sinai. And he says, from the John the sinner, the abbot of monastery of Raithu, to the holy of fathers, to the high in stature, to the equal to the angels, to the brilliant teacher, peace in the Lord. For me, the wretched, I know the obedience that God has adorned you with, an obedience that extends to all of the fields in their differences, and it makes them beautiful with all the virtues. And these beauties are exactly, or most expressively, they are transfigured and glorified if you have and when you have invested the gift or the talent that God has given it to you. So now, I dare to you a very humble request, beseeching you, knowing that it has written, ask your father and he will teach you. Ask your elders and they will talk to you. You are our father, our father of all of us, our elder, and the one who is oldest of us, and bigger of us, the biggest of us, in asceticism, in intelligence, and the most of the teachers who is worthy, who is in a position, who is ahliya, and power and strength. So I come to you with these lines, beseeching to your strong virtue, that you would write to us what you have seen in God the Almighty, what Moses have seen in the mountain. Is that clear, brothers and sisters? And I would ask you that you would explain to us in a letter that would be an oracle similar to the oracles that are written by the fingers of God, to teach the new Israel, us, the new Israel, that we are leaving the spiritual Egypt and the sea of earthly cares. So basically he's equating St. John to Moses as he's helping all of us to leave the spiritual Egypt, which is the Egypt of sin. And as you have before did indeed make miracles on this sea, instead of using the staff of Moses, you have used your tongue that is filled with the grace of God. You should continue to explain in order and in diligence what is necessary for the monastic life and what is profitable to God for our salvation, as a good shepherd to all of who live this spiritual lives. And then he explained that we have hope to us that you would write these laws. By the way, when these saints talk to each other, they talk from the bottom of their heart. They're not flattering each other. They're actually seeing, and he's in all sincerity, he's writing his letter because this abbot of St. Raithu, he's looking to learn. So all of these letters are not just poetry. They are actually from the bottom of his heart. It's filled with honesty and humility. So now let's see an excerpt of how St. John Climacus, whom we commemorate today, replies to him. It says, "From John to John, peace. I have received the letter, the precious letter, that is truly fitting to your heavenly life, that is passionless, and with your heart that is pure and that is humble. And you have sent it to me, the wretched, that am poor in virtues, and in a better sentence, I have received your command that is above my ability. It is you. It is only you. It is your holy soul, and that is shown and expressed in this request that is directed to my ignorance and to my failing, both in word and in deed, that to write a letter that is fitting to teach and to preach. Because you have used that you yourself to give us in your person, an example always for humility. As for me, except for my fear of getting away of the yoke of holy obedience, the mother of all virtues, I wouldn't have dared, opposite to logic, to do such a task that is above my ability and above my capacity. You, Holy Father, should have looked for people with experience to help you in this field. But as for me, I'm still learning. But since our Holy Fathers, who are clothed with righteousness, and they are clothed with God, and they know the true knowledge, they have set that obedience, look what he says, that obedience, it is the submission to the masters without hesitation, even in what is above our capacity. Then I have not taken care of my own weakness and ignorance, to do in humility this work that is overcompassing me. And then he continues beautifully how the other Father is filled with the heavenly light, and he's the one who should teach, and all of that. It's absolutely beautiful. So this Father John Climacus, when he wrote his reply, he wasn't flattering. Because the saints, as they go higher in their spiritual life, they see the light more, and they see that they cannot do anything without God. They get humility further. So, brothers and sisters, asceticism in spiritual life is absolutely of utmost importance. And today, the gospel shows to us that why didn't the disciples, even though they have power from Christ to exorcise demons, Christ himself gave them the power to exorcise demons, but then when they went and they tried to exorcise this one, they couldn't. What happened? And here is what happened, brothers and sisters. The only way that we can trample upon demons, what demons do not have is humility. What demons do not have is humility. So the disciples and many of us, when we come closer of Christ, rather than become more humble, we become prideful that we're closer to Christ. And with that spirit of pride, the demons already trampled upon us. How can we beat them? How can we beat them? And that's what happened to the disciples. That's why Christ answers that this type, not just this type, all demons, cannot be beaten except with prayer and fasting. Because prayer and fasting really, if done properly according to the teaching of the church and according to the recipe of the church, will actually show the way to humility. It is the door to humility. And in that manner, practically, many of us, I'm the chief. Whenever we do anything that God has requested to do from us. We think about whether we're doing a good job or a bad job. And we think about our own insecurities. And am I fitting for that? Am I good for that? Am I going to do a good job? Is the people will be happy with what I do? And it's all about the I. But the reality of the matter, brothers and sisters, if we really think about it, when, let's say, the governor of North Dakota summoned any of us to his office and asked us, sir, I want you to do, or ma'am, I want you to do this task for me, you'll be absolutely flattered because it's the governor of this great state that has asked you to do this task. Then he trusts you, and then you're able to do this task for him. How about the President of the United States, if he calls you? Or any king or queen? You'll be absolutely flattered. Brothers and sisters, who is asking us to do our vocation, no matter what we do in life, whether we're mothers, we're fathers, whether we're homemakers, whether we're carpenters, whether we're business people, whether we're farmers, whether we work, whether we're doctors, whether we're retired, whether we're students, God Himself has called you and equipped you to do that. Focus on Him. And when you focus on Him, all your insecurities will disappear. And with your prayer life and with your fasting life, you will come to see that that all of the gifts that are given to you, it's not for your own glory, it's for His glory, and you'll be absolutely in the fullness of peace. Similar to the Holy Father, St. John Climacus, when he replied that I'm unworthy, he wasn't insecure about himself. He was fully secure in the trust of his God. There was no self at all. Prayer and fasting erase the self. That's what it is. Prayer and fasting focus on Him. That's it. And when we focus on Him, we return to His image. And that's the purpose of our spiritual life. And that's the calling of this church. This Sunday, tomorrow, every Sunday, all the days of our life. We return to call to Him to remove our own, not just insecurities, our own self completely. And when then we're able to climb up the ladder, overcome the demons with His grace and the humility that God has given us. Through the prayers of the Theotokos, St. Basil and St. John. Amen.